I wanted to be the first one to. Does that come up on your side? Does it kind of
Yes.
okay?
So what happens is when you do that, my whole screen does what yours does. So when I do this, that's all you see, right? So for the people who are listening, we on this Skype, there are different emojis we can use. So if Chris says something funny, I can hit this crying with laughter one, which will pop up on his screen. So if you're watching this, you'll see what we're doing. If you're just listening, well, you're missing out on the emojis.
I was saying last night. I think when I was chatting with you, I was trying to remember. Do you remember ICQ?
I do remember ICQ, yes.
And that I don't know if that ever made it to video chat, but that was one of the first kind of chats. One of the first chat things that I think I played with. But one of them, and I don't remember, or maybe it was I don't know if it was ICQ. Maybe it was a different. Maybe it was just an app, like a program that came with one of the computers I bought. But I remember you could do chats like this, and you could do like the masks, like Instagram kind of stuff. Like I could have myself with a top hat and a monocle, like the Peanut Man or whatever. Like you could actually do that as long as you're looking in the camera. It would sort of give you that look. I'm actually surprised they don't have that for this, because that's all on the pocket stuff, right? Like any of the mobile device socials has something where you can give yourself baby eyes and cat ears, or
just add it to Empathy Engines. So when we get the glasses, add that in the whole chat thing.
We haven't talked much about that product line in a while.
No, we haven't.
Maybe it'll pop back up this year.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Yeah, still in the developmental stage. Although I did see you post up something. Someone was talking to you about something, and you brought back in the Hulk Smash EDU.
Yeah, but what was it? I don't remember.
You're saying you had the Hulk Smash. Was it something to do with your? Hey, let's Okay, so let's drop into this on the front end. The clear the list stuff, and you said you reformat it and say clear your personal list. Maybe
yes.
It was a part of that. Maybe it was a part of that I saw. You're chatting with someone and helping them out with something, and you had said, "Don't worry, you know what? I got your back. I have the Hulk gloves for something." That's what I thought. I mean, I could be off on that.
No, not you.
But yeah, the clear the personal lists.
Yes, yes.
Is that getting any traction? Anyone chatting you up on that?
Yeah, a couple people did, and actually, Lee Castle tweeted me the other day and said that she'd love to figure out how to get that connected to OnEd Mentors or OnEd Connect or Mentors Connect. I should know what it's called, OnEd Mentors Connect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I love it, right? Because the idea behind it is, it stems from that lady that said she wanted to, you know what? Now I don't know. Is this did we talk about this in the podcast that I lost, the lost episode? Okay, so
I don't think it had. I don't think so. Last week's I don't think it formally made it to a conversation. Like I don't think. I remember you posting, or we talked about that you were going to kind of push into the social to see what happens, but I don't think it ever got kind of fleshed out at all.
Okay, so let's play with it a little bit. I'm on Twitter, just scrolling through, and I don't know how I saw this, but some lady that I wasn't connected to basically said out loud for everybody to see, like typed it out and said, I have a goal, and one of my goals is to be on a podcast. And I thought this is hilarious, because I know people who have podcasts, and I know people who are always looking to talk to educators. So I responded, I said something like, that's an easy one. And I tagged a bunch of people, and one of them was Voice Ed Radio. And then Stephen Hurley, the father of Voice Ed, he connected with her and he set something up so that she will be on a podcast or on the radio, and he's even looking to like let her have like a show every week on live radio. So I thought about that and I thought, how that was so easy for me to be able to help. So there's got to be situations where I might have something that I'd like to get off my personal list, and somebody might see it, and it might be really easy for them to help me out. So I just tweeted, is there a thing around hashtag clear your personal list? Because I think it'd be cool for people to use that tag and then for other people to help out. And I had a little bit of back and forth here and there. And then yesterday I got a tweet from Lee, who I guess has seen the tweet, and she's like, "This is awesome. I wonder how we could tap into this." And for anybody who knows Lee Castle, if Lee's interested in something, that's huge. Like, I mean, she's a force to be reckoned with. So I I love that somebody's stumbled across it and thinks it's kind of neat. I love that it's someone like Lee who she doesn't just think about things, she moves them into action. And I think this would be a really cool thing to play around with and to do. I mean, it's one thing. So if something works out with the Connect Mentors people, that's cool because they have a database of teachers, well, and people within and outside of education who want to help educators. They want to mentor them. And the mentoring piece can be heavy. It can also be relatively light, but basically you're connected to another person for a certain amount of time, and you're there to guide, facilitate, support, discuss, whatever they need. You're going to try to meet those needs as best as you can as a mentor. Well, you've got this database of people with all kinds of skill sets and interests. I think it'd be great for someone on the outside to say, I have a goal. And one of my goals as a teacher is to learn how to go gradeless. I don't know where to start. I don't know how. For me, it's a big deal. You put that out there to the mentor people, and I'm sure on their list of how many people have registered to be a mentor, there's somebody there who has experience with that or knows somebody who has experience with that. And then it's a simple referral. Like, I saw that you're interested in this. My buddy over here does this all the time. And he was just like you once. He had no clue where to start and how to do it. For one person, it's a very difficult situation, or it appears to be. And then for another person, they're fluent in doing this. They know where they started. They know the process. They know, some of the hiccups they experienced. And so they can offer assistance. I think that's awesome. I think it's great. And I think to me, there's more value there than helping someone buy materials for a classroom. Now, I'm not saying that's not important, but I'm just saying, like, you have a list of stuff you need for your classroom. And then, once the list is cleared, I feel like I needed to say something to go a little bit deeper. And that's where I came up with the clear your personal list. I think it's awesome that this lady is going to have the opportunity now to be on a podcast, to possibly host her own. Like, think of how awesome that is, how life-changing that could be, to express an interest that you have or like a goal, and then have people come out of the woodwork and be able to offer you guidance or support to help you reach your goal. I think it's awesome. Isn't that what we do with kids? Like the crew that's going to be sitting in front of me, they're all going to be different. They're all going to have their needs. They're all going to have their strengths, and they're all going to want to go somewhere, do something. And it's kind of my job to help them out as best as I can. So why can't I do that with adults who are going to be working with kids?
I like when I saw that posting from that. I think a teacher. I guess I didn't actually read the full credentials, the profile of the individual, of the original poster, but I always wonder about the why. And I should have messaged to ask why. Why have you set a podcast as your thing that you want to do? I was curious about that. Maybe I'll still message afterwards. You gotta kind of grab those moments though when they happen, right? You gotta ask that question right away before it moves too far from before it moves, the conversation shifts elsewhere, because sometimes it's hard to bring the conversation back. But yeah, the why. I was curious why that was a thing. Not that I'm questioning that it should or shouldn't be a thing. What was the thinking that happened just before that made, a podcast the thing on the list? So that's what I'm still wondering about. The other thing that I wondered about when I saw you posting that, I wondered to myself, will people sort of play safe and talk only about teacher things? That was the other part I was wondering about, as in, like down that. And I don't mean, okay, so let me backtrack for a sec. For some people, and for many people, who knows how many people, doing a podcast could be, that's like got high risk and high excitement. Could be. It struck me that it was a very kind of teachery thing to put, to aspire to, and then putting the hashtag together made me wonder if anyone would sort of want to go more risky and actually, because you put personal list, not professional list. So people were kind of reading it though as I read it as personal list, and I thought, this is cool. This is opening the sort of space right up. Now, it's a riff off the whole clear the list thing. Still a head shaker for me on that one. We can talk about that one, the clear the list hashtag or movement. But when you flipped it to clear your personal list, I actually took that quite directly. I thought, oh, what is on my personal list? I've put to you the skydiving thing. That's not a very teacher conversation, but that, if I would say, is on my personal list. Maybe I should drop that in and say, hey, yo, I need someone to go skydiving with. who can help me get there. It reminds me a little bit of, I don't know, it was a year ago, Mike Reynolds, everyday girl dad, really cool dude to follow, multiple social platforms. But he was doing this thing, what would you do? I think the working title was, what would you do if there were two? So he's kind of posting out this idea, like, what have you really been craving to do that you've kind of been holding back from? But if you tell me what it is, and I'll do my best to kind of do it with you. So he had people sending it, but he was kind of centering it just on himself. He's like, I want to take this as sort of personal growth. And he had people kind of saying, I want to get it. There was a guy, I think, stuff like, I want to get a tattoo. I've always wanted to color my hair. I wanted to lose a little weight. I want to try yoga. And he was kind of doing this as a personal challenge as well. So I'll be interested to see if people dip into that and take it as an opportunity for both personal and professional growth. And it, just to bring this back around, like, I think it really is, for me, ultimately what is the biggest gain in having sort of social media, where it's not just the projection. It's not just the I'm telling you things about myself, or I've got the stage where I can share things about myself. It's where you open up the opportunity that someone can kind of either help you or support you or come back and do something with you. Like, I really like that idea. And as I said, I'm waiting to see if anybody kind of drops into that tag, like something that is not school related, and see how people kind of react to that.
Well, you raise a good point. I did call it clear your personal list, thinking, I don't know what I was thinking, but I just hope people just jump into it. Like your skydiving thing. I think you should do that. I think you should tweet out about that and see what people say. Like I don't know how much research you've done into any of that, but you could have people, okay, you could have people respond and say, hey, go here or don't go there. Or I don't know, maybe somebody knows somebody who gets you up there for half price or some kind of discount. I don't know. That's the thing. We don't know, right? You don't know who you're talking to or what you're talking about. I've I recently had a really cool situation where a former student of mine, her father contacted me and told me what his daughter was working on. She's working on this really cool app. And he was like, I know you're into tech and tech integration and stuff. This is what she's thinking. This is what she's done. This is what she wants to do. Do you know anybody who can support her? Can you, outside the realm of school, can we find support in the community for this? And, I thought to myself, I really appreciate the fact that he considered me and thought I might be able to help. And then I tapped into a couple of friends. One of them is a mom from my son's hockey team, who basically her job is to find money to support entrepreneurs. So I went to her and she's like, yeah, I can connect you with this guy at my work whose entire job description is about helping people like your former student. I was like, this is beautiful. So then I made the introductions and the connections happen, and now people are running with this. They're working together. They're trying to figure out how to get this done for this entrepreneur who's in grade 8. You just never know who you're talking to, and you don't know their connections. And so when you have something like Twitter that can be far-reaching, put your stuff out there and see what happens. The worst thing that can happen is you don't hear back from anybody. Nobody says anything. The best thing that can happen is that you make a connection with someone who can help you along the way to clear that item off your personal list or your professional list, whatever it is. I think that's with all the negative stuff happening in the world and social media being used for bad rather than good. I think this is the light. This is some light if you're interested in coming out of the darkness kind of thing. I don't know. I just thought it was really cool. And my goal is to positively impact people and to leave a positive print. You've seen both now, the light side of me and the dark side of me. And I truly believe both are necessary and everybody has them. But at the end of the day, as someone who, is considered an innovator, a change maker, I would like to put my stamp on something positive, something that is bigger than just some of the skills that are being used here and there on social media. I don't know. Maybe it's my age too, right? I'm getting to the age where I'm looking back and wondering, what have I done that has, been positive? What will people remember about me when I'm not around? Those things just pop in here and there. And I don't know, I think in the world we live in now, digital is happening the speed of light. It's just flying. Every day there's something new. Who would have ever thought you and I would talk about smart glasses and applying them to the things that we would like them to be used for in our work as educators, right? It's friggin' crazy. So what are we going to be talking about in 2 years? If that's and we're late to the game, right? Wearables are all over the place. There are wearable glasses. Are they doing what you and I would like them to do? I don't think so. I've not heard that they are, but I mean, it just takes for one person to get a whiff of what we're talking about, who are in a position to make something like that happen, and it happens. So I think that's where we're living more so than in the past. before social media, before the internet, you know, if you had connections, they lived like on your desk in a binder or something. They weren't just, and even then the connections were solid, tight connections. When I think of Twitter as there's connections, but it's loose because you don't know where an idea is going to go, right? Like if back in the day somebody calls you and says, "Hey, Roland, I hear you know a guy that might be able to help me with whatever." I'm like, "Yeah," and I could open up my binder, find the business card, and be like, "Call Joe Blow, he'll help you out." Now it happens to me every day. I run across a tweet and I have no idea how it came to me. Somebody that I started following 2 years ago retweeted something, and for some reason, first the algorithm decided it was going to pop up on my feed, and I see stuff, and I more so than ever I wonder, how did this thing come across my desk, right? Whereas I think in the past, things coming across your desk were much more intentional, and you could connect it faster to the to whoever it came from, the origin of it. Here on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, things pop up and you're like, this is awesome. Now I know why they pop up. There's some kind of computer science and math are working together with the universe to throw things across your way, or at least that's how I believe it. So it's so different today that I think people should be much more open about what they're trying to do or what they want to do, because I feel like it's gonna come across somebody's eyes who can help or who can direct you to someone who can help. I think that's the beauty of social media. That's the beauty of the connections. And maybe not, like there might be people out there who don't follow a lot of people and don't have a lot of followers, but put it out there because somebody will turn it over and it will end up in somebody else's lap who will be able to assist in some way or at least try. So like with this father, I told him I've got a couple of people in mind right away in the education space that have experience with what you're talking about. So I'll throw it at them and see what they say. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, what about this kid's mom who I don't follow on social media? You know, we know nothing about our digital footprint. I just know her from hockey and I know what she does for a living. And so reach out to her and immediately, like I'm talking within an hour, connections were being made, contact information was being passed along, and an idea is now one step closer to becoming reality. And what's even more awesome for me is that it's a kid I taught, right? I hear stories all the time from my educator friends about kids they taught who come back and see them. That's not been my reality. I don't have kids come back and see me, probably because I don't stay at schools long enough for that turnover. But it's, I hear those stories and I think to myself, oh, that's not really been my experience in this way. And look at how it's come to be digitally, right? Like the guy didn't walk into my classroom at school and say, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I got an email. This whole thing is digital. It's so cool to me because I do value the digital space and I do strongly believe that it can have a positive impact. It's just how you look at it, what you do with it, and who you're connecting with. And when all those things come together, you can have a really amazing moment. So, long story short, clear your personal list was kind of tongue in cheek, but it's also open to whoever wants to try to use it. And I'm sure there's people out there doing this all the time. I just don't see it. They're not using that tag, whatever, right? I just think, look, can we be a little bit more aware, and can we be a little bit more intentional in doing these things?
And again, I love the provocation. I love the opportunity, and I'm curious. I'm I mean, you and I have tried to, I guess, kind of poke social media, try to find a new hashtag that kind of encapsulates a conversation. And I don't know if we're intentionally trying to get it to trend or to take on a life of its own, but it's interesting how to really get conversation, some excited conversation going about something, especially when you're not tagging it into any kind of cult-like mass that will just like everything that you do. Sometimes getting these little kind of real moments that have the opportunity to kind of grow into something, you start to realize that, like, unless you nurture this dude, it's gonna die on the vine. I really think it will. And I'm curious to see, whether or not that takes a whole other bit of dedication to be able to keep a hashtag active and kind of vibrant. But when I saw that, I wondered whether or not I just wondered whether or not this was sort of like, if this was just simple, like you're just trying to get people thinking, or if this is something that would become a bit of a project for you. And the other part of it that I was thinking about, and we touched on this in the last episode, was that idea. Well, I mean, like, there's some things we can tag back into, but here's what you got me thinking. It's kind of the connection between the clear your personal list opportunity offer and individuals that are looking to get to 500, like 1,000, 2,000 followers. And it's got me thinking about the whole, like, are we really, really appreciative and aware of what that assembly of individuals that are willing to listen to us means? Like, are we really, really sensitive to that? Or are we just we just assume that it's there for the taking, that there's just people there waiting to pay attention to us? Like, it's really ego-centered, right? Like, the fact that you feel like you are owed to get to any follower count. But it also makes me just think about the whole how well we're using our social media to kind of build something other than this kind of invisible infrastructure, right? Because there's absolutely zero value to 500 followers unless you're doing something with them, whatever that might be. You got to be doing something. And I'm not sort of like, I don't think this is new theory, and it's kind of revelatory to me. But when I think about the potential power of that conversation of clear your personal list and the size of our connected groups, there's a really great opportunity for something in real life to happen out of this, like to have it not just be conversation. I think it was one of the parts of your string in there talked about the accountability structure. And that's really important in sort of like personal growth and looking to change habit. I mean, it's one of those things even in habit changing, right? Like, you need to have an accountability frame. And then there's methods to sort of like boost that and have other people that are going to help you out with it. So I think one of those kind of itchy sweater moments, and I'm jumping back to more that idea of having 500 followers, 1,000, 2,000 followers. If you're not doing anything with it, like, not really, like if you're not really kind of setting fires and getting people to activate and do things in real life, I question the value of having that many followers. Like, you're just collecting people for no reason. So I'm hoping that your hashtag, I'm hoping it blows up into something. I do. At the same time, it won't unless you nurture it. Like, unless you push this as a personal passion project and start kind of prompting people and kind of using your follower base as kind of like your lab. Like, you need to talk to you got this stuff going on. There we go. There's my little poke. Sorry, dude, not looking to give you any homework. But that's what I thought about when I was looking at your post.
It's funny you mentioned that because with the other hashtag of a project I'm working on, the Daring Classrooms collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
I find people have been coming in here and there and dropping stuff and asking questions and starting or providing information that might start a discussion. I think it's awesome. But it's interesting that whole thing that whole thing has been created in a way to collaborate, to bring other people into the mix, to learn from other people. Maybe they can learn something from me. And that one, I was thinking about that one this morning actually, because I have a feeling it's not going to go anywhere if I don't push it. Now, having said that, let me tell you my intention around pushing it. I'm not looking to have it turn into some whacked out bunch of followers who are like, I don't think it's going to be anything big. My intention
Do you want it
is
to be?
um not necessarily. What I Here's what I want. It's that followers thing and what you do with it. If, 1,000 people put their name on the list to participate and do nothing, that's not going to help anybody. If 10 people put their name on the list and we collaborate and we do really awesome things and we build like a rapport and trust amongst each other to be able to share our failures and our successes, that to me is 1,000 times more valuable than having a bunch of people say I'm interested and do nothing. So my intention was, I do believe in the information, the content of the book, Dare to Lead. There's a lot of good stuff there. And I really do have an interest in translating and applying some of what I'm reading in the book into my classroom with my kids. Because I see value in having my students understand a little bit more about themselves, to be more aware of when their armor's on, when their armor's off. And the ultimate would be for them to be able to come to the classroom, as Brene Brown and her team has stated, and to be able to drop the armor and truly be who they are in a safe place for them. I've been trying to do that since I became a teacher. I wish that people did that to me when I was a student. So it's not like Brene Brown's work is like I've never seen it before, but I love how she's packaged it. I love how she's pushing it. And so my intention is to work on that stuff in my classroom. And I would like to be more collaborative in doing so. I would like other people to jump in. I would like other people to share what they're doing, how they're doing it, so that maybe other people who don't know what to do or aren't sure where to start can start there, can start with, hey, you know, Jenny's doing this in a grade 2 class and it looks awesome and it sounds good. I think I'm going to dip my toe in the water and do what Jenny did and then see what's happening. Not everybody's going to be able to just jump in and start on their own. Sometimes people need a little spark. They need to see something happen, then they start to go with it and then they build their own thing, right? Their fluency comes from somebody else's idea, which is how a lot of things work. I intend to carry through with the Daring CC project. If people join me, awesome. If nobody joins me, awesome. Because I'm not doing it to get followers. I'm not doing it so that it goes viral. I'm doing it because it's going to keep me accountable. It's one of what I'm considering a leadership project for the school year. And I want to grow. And I want my kids. I want to see differences in my kids because of it. So again, usually what happens to me is when I enter into something, I really need to know why. Sometimes it's the right reason, sometimes it's the wrong reasons. But I feel like the clear your personal list hashtag would probably fall off the table faster than the Daring CC hashtag, just because it's not as connected to what I'm doing in the classroom, right? It's really kind of wide open. Having said that, Lee Castle, as I said, is open to talking about how it applies, how this can apply to OEM Connects. And I'm open to that 100%. I think, as I said before, OEM Connects is a database of people who bring lots of talents and skills and connections to the table. Even the mentees that end up coming in to be mentored, they have a lot to offer too. So everybody involved is this huge database of connections and interests and passions. And so I think that if somebody were to drop a wish on them, there's somebody in that space that could probably direct you, if not be able to sit down with you and help you meet a goal that you have or an interest you want to follow. That's the general idea. So I'm not looking for, I'm looking to be useful. And if that works for 5 people, then that works for 5 people. And if it works for more than that, that's great too. You know how I feel about the BS behind the edu celebrity. There are some, this is really interesting too, eh? Like the whole thing's fascinating. So I know a guy who might be considered an edu celebrity. I respect him and I listen to what he says because I believe he has things to offer that are of value. And I saw somebody ripping into him the other day. They were like, saying, like this guy's only been in the classroom for this long, and he's written these books, and he's part of the pirate crew, who already seems to me like the love in some circles is dying for the pirate people. But it's funny. I read this tweet, and I think I may have even responded to the tweet and said, "Hey, like, I appreciate your position. Here's mine. I actually know this guy, and he's not this guy's not snake oil salesman. He's just not. I've known him long enough now and seen his prior work to Edu Celebrity and his post work, and it's still legit in my opinion. But everybody's got their opinion. That's the beautiful thing about it. And I'm not going to push back. I didn't push back on this person and say, you don't know what you're talking about. No, I didn't do that. All I said was, this is my perspective of this guy, and it's pretty legit to me. That's all. So why did I tweet her out? I tweeted her out, and I didn't snitch tag him either. I thought about it, like, no, I'm not going to snitch tag him. I support the individual. It's unfortunate that he's one of the pirates, because I think that he loses a lot of credibility there in some circles. But, you're not going to be credible in every single circle. I hope I answered your question. If, will I push it? You know my life, Chris. I'm not waking up on Saturday mornings looking to push agendas, right? Like, we do the podcast, and then when hockey season kicks in and ski season kicks in, I got to focus on what's most important to me and how I can still do what I want to do and be a dad, and go from there. And I love that, I got to throw this in, that the on-ramp today was all about us talking about being dad, right? Like, there was maybe 2 minutes of how are you feeling about the going back to school bit, but then it turned into talking about our kids and talking about some of the challenges we're facing as dads right now, or future challenges, or past excitement. Like, it was good to talk to you for 20 minutes about just being a dad and decoding some of the dad stuff.
It's the lead in was part of, as I'm sort of doing the replay, for me was the heart of it for me was sort of me noticing that my kids are noticing a lot more stuff. So there's no more space in our kind of family room, our kitchen, for my spouse and I to even do stuff like this when there's things we need to focus on. Like, we can't even do this anymore. Like, you can't even do the eyeballs and the look anymore, because one of the kids are like, what's going on there between the two of you? Like, you have to leave the room altogether. And both of my kids are not only listening, which is great, they're jumping in, so they want to put their comments in there, and they're also curating so stuff that they kind of hear they're not blurting it out right away. They're holding their cards a little bit close, and then they're kind of bringing it back to the table later, saying stuff like a day later. They're like, remember when Mommy and you were in the kitchen, and you kind of looked at Mommy, and Mommy looked at you, and then you said that one word, and you said a time. Were you guys talking about going doing this thing? I'm like, oh. So yeah, that was the. And I think part of what's feeding into that, if I'm kind of meshing the school style and the like the stuff happening with school life, fatherhood, husbandhood, was me yesterday, the day before, getting like the bag of work, and me now the bag of work. There was there were a couple boxes and a bag of work that I kind of dove into and finally kind of organized and decided what needed to go in the garbage and the recycling bin, and what the kids know. So if I'm going with the noticing theme, they kept on coming in and checking in on me. They're like, what's going on? Like you're still doing this project. And for them, they're coming down and I'm sure they're looking at like I'm not making much headway on this. Because the basement was just, I sort of broke down two sort of wood structures that the previous owners had left here that I was using to kind of store stuff on. So me just getting to the bag of work, I had to get my workspace. I was working on bag of work and workspace at the same time. So the three and 3/4 hours that I spent trying to figure out when and how I was going to start planning for the school year and start organizing stuff was wrapped around me also doing some small carpentry tasks of breaking down wood structures and stacking wood and getting stuff out to the garbage. But the kids noticed it. And I can remember a time where they might not have. They might have just thought, oh, he's downstairs just doing a thing. They were kind of checking in and they wanted to know. And there was later on yesterday, we were out for a drive. They're like, so are you done? I'm like, what? You done with your prep? Because they're like looking at next week. So the last week before we head back to school, I'm like, you know what, guys, like I'm going to be in and out of prep mode all next week. We have the in-laws coming up to help out with grandparenting because I'll be going into the school, and Karen's this was her prep week. School starts. She's got an early start school, so that starts up next week. Yeah, the kids noticing and their power of deduction. It's getting strong. It's just noticing how your family grows up, right?
Yeah, and
yeah,
some of that's good and some of that's bad. Like, you know, the example of Santa, right? And you know, I don't even know what to say because I know one day my kids might listen to this. Actually, we were joking about that.
I was just thinking the same thing. My kids at some point, they're like, they come across one episode, and the one episode is like us talking about this, and they're like, oh my God, they were actually talking and plotting, planning about this thing.
Right. This funny thing is, so my 13-year-old, I'm all over the place now, but my 13-year-old, what he's been doing now with his friends is they've been making fun of me and my digital footprint. Mm-hmm. So they're basically creeping me. And then my son is like joking around, making fun of different pictures he's seen of me on the internet. So I know, isn't that funny? Well, so anyway, he's in the place of trying to discover, hey, my dad's got this whole side of him that I don't really know too much about, but it's so open and it's out there. So I don't think it's going to be long before him and his friends are like, what do you mean your dad wakes up early on Saturday and talks to his buddy and then records it and puts it on the internet? Like, I think eventually he's going to stumble upon this and he's going to be like, oh my God, what's my dad talking about? You know? And all of a sudden I just had this thing of, they hit this episode, season 2, episode 41 of DeCodEd Summer School, and they're talking about Santa. I want to hear my dad's position on this. So I'm for the first time in a long time, I'm actually worried about talking about something on the podcast, which normally doesn't happen, right? But I'll just say it. Sorry to any of the kids listening, but future kids, not, I know nobody's listening now. There's gonna be no kids listening to this right now, but as as a dad, it devastated me when my 13-year-old, he's 13 now, but when he realized or he learned from some mean kid at school that Santa wasn't real, I was devastated. Because as an adult, I still love the whole idea of it. I love it. It's magical. It makes me feel good, and I want to feel good. Now, my 13-year-old's brother, who's 9, he still believes. And, we're not, my wife and I are not doing anything to mess with it. I don't think we're pushing it, but we're also not pushing back. It brings him joy. It makes him feel good about the season, right? It makes him feel good that the idea that there's somebody out there who's doing nice things for kids, for people, making things happen. And as I was telling you on the on-ramp last year at Christmas time, he was like, we sat down, he's like, when does Santa get to the mall? And, even in that situation, he's like, he knows that those are helpers. They may not be the real one, but they've been contracted by the real deal to get things done, right? So even there, he's like, okay, I know that dude, it probably isn't him, but the real guy has contracted this guy out. And like I told you, we sat down, we looked at the calendar, we looked at like, when does he start? When does he end? When do I have hockey? When are you free? You don't have something to do? We worked it out, and then I'll never forget. It was the day to go. It was a weeknight where I was going to buy him dinner, and he dressed up for the occasion. Dressed up, did his hair, and I was like, "Oh my God, like this is big time." And then we went, and he sat there and he talked to him, and the Santa was, dude, he was awesome. So he was so good. I'm sitting there smiling, thinking, this guy's awesome, because he noticed my son was wearing his hockey jacket, and so like most relatively smart individuals, he says to him, "So I know you play hockey," and my kid's like, "How do you know?" He's like, "I just know these things," and he's wearing his coat, right, like with the symbol on it and stuff. He goes, but I follow lots of kids, lots of hockey teams. Like, can you tell me about how they're doing? Because there's so many for me to keep track of. So my son starts telling them their record and how they're doing. And this guy just went with the flow. And at the end of this, my kid leaves feeling like $1,000,000, right? He's like, Santa knows I play, who I play for. And then we have dinner, and the kid's happy. And the kid feels like the world's a good place, There's nothing wrong with that. So as a teacher, so if we take this now and we apply it to what I do in the classroom, I don't think I'm like an aggressive person in the classroom, but you should see I change into the Hulk when people walking around talking about Santa's not real. And I'm like, this is not the place to be advertising what you learned at home or what you believe that way. You're not going to come here and crush dreams. There's always a kid or two that'll look at me like, I'm not writing a letter to Santa because I know Santa doesn't exist. And my response is, hey, you're free to do what you want. I would ask politely that you not walk around saying that to everybody else. And they kind of look at me and I'm like, look around. You got kids, you got Johnny over there who never writes a word, who's got his pencil and his paper, jotting down every idea because he thinks some dude named Santa is going to read his letter. So don't be doing that. Let's not do that. You don't want us to spoil things for you. How about you not spoil it for them? And that's the only time that I can think of where I really feel like, don't do it. Don't walk around crushing people's dreams like that. So I'm glad we got to do the dad thing, because that's part of this podcast. We're two dads, right? We got kids. We're trying to survive that whole part of our life and the whole part of like our job, which is more than a job, in my opinion.
I think we touched on this in a couple episodes. Also, like that idea that there's a part of the things that I do as a teacher that overlap with me being there's a lot of things that overlap, but this sort of the podcasting and my personal professional development is one of those things. Like there's definitely like it's a bit of a gray zone. Like it's not specific. It sort of just has to kind of wash with my work life and my home life. And, the conversations that you and I have and other ones that have been recorded and are out there somewhere, I do often think about, when and if my kids find these things. And what part of me, I mentioned to you talking about how my dad and his Facebook page and how my mom took it over, and I'm still sitting on like when my dad was at some point when he was sick, when he was ill and in the hospital, like all the passwords and everything were passed on to me, so I have a copy somewhere of all that information. And at, I'm wondering about going back and looking at some of his old posts, and there's that space of wondering if there's stuff about my dad that I could learn. Like, is there things I could sort of get, if I could get to know him after the fact? And I extend out of that into when my kids find all these different feeds that I've been involved with. Like, what are they going to think about it? What are they going to think about not only the conversations? I mean, they might actually have some opinions, educational opinions about the stuff that I talked about, who knows? But will they have a moment where they're like, will they have a moment where they say, I didn't know that about my dad and I wish I had? So there's this weird kind of thing that we do with this podcast. Like, how much of, is there stuff in the podcast that I do in my digital spaces that I really do need to share more with my kids, like so that they kind of are familiar with some of the way that I think and the way that I am and my personality? Who knows? Maybe I'm pretty harmonized right now. I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation I just need to have with my kids and ask them about that. I don't know if my youngest, I don't know if he would have a kind of a clear view on that. But probably my daughter would. She would tell me straight up whether or not there's any, inconsistencies in how I'm rocking my digital space versus how I'm rocking the dadhood. There's a little bit of fear, like maybe being called out at some point, like the Santa thing. Like, really? You were talking about Santa 5 years before,
I feel the same as you, that there's stuff about my dad now that he's gone that I wish I knew. So I think it's always there. There are stuff about us that our kids don't know, and they're going to come to a point where they're going to want to know, right? They're going to want to know, like, and I think the fact that you and I do this in such an open way, in such an open space, I know for sure my boys are going to stumble on it. They're going to wake up one morning, they're going to realize, oh, dad's in the computer room again doing this thing. What's he doing? And then they'll start digging and they'll see what you and I have been doing, but I think that's cool. I think it's cool. I wish that my dad had left something for me to get a better picture of who he was, what he was about, some of his fears, some of his goals and successes. I just don't know. I remember having this great conversation with my dad when I was a teenager, and we had this conversation. It was like a heart to heart when I was a late teen. And he said something that resonated with me. He said, I'll tell you more when you're older.
Yes.
Or I'll tell you more when you finish school and you're in a place to know. And
that used to be a thing. I think that used to be a little bit more.
Oh, really?
Like, I think that used to be like a saying. I don't know if I've ever said that, but I can remember being told that too. Wait till you grow up.
Well, here's the thing. When I grew up, he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally. So I did my schooling, and I finished my master's degree. I finished my master's degree like technically like at the end of July type of thing. Like I did the summer school portion of it and I was done. I had all my credits. I handed in my paperwork to be at the next convocation, which was happening in October, and I had a job. Like I it's like I instantly became an adult, and now I was privy to the conversations. And I remember my dad joking with me, he said, okay, so you have a real job, because I was already employed at that time. I had started my job in July. He's like, you're already employed, so and you're making real money. You're educated. And he's like, so now let's talk about what you're gonna do with this money. It was hilarious. Even like I'm in my early 20s, and my dad's like, you better be saving some of that paycheck, right? Like you're getting paid real money, so now let's do real things with your money. And it's funny because my intention was to help my family pay the bills and stuff, right? Like I was like, hey, I'm making real money. That means that some of it can be for me to live a real life, but I can help now. Like I can actually help you pay bills, and I can buy stuff for the house and do all these things that I couldn't do before, just because I didn't feel like I made enough money. But my dad's focus was, don't worry about us. You need to think about your future. And I just I felt like I had arrived, like I'm here. You told me when I'm here. And then what does he do? He goes and dies. And so I never had those conversations. He was just, and in a way, is the universe laughing at me like you got to where you needed to be and then we pulled him from you because you were there and you were now able to take over. So he doesn't need to be there anymore. Like these weird ideas roll through my head, right? Like I get to where I need to be and he's gone. So, I don't want the same thing to happen to my kids. So in a way, what we do here is like,
Well, it matters. How about that? It matters, and I don't know if I've ever really settled into that. I don't know if I've ever really settled into that. I don't know if I've had that as part of my intention in my professional development. That long term, like the idea of how am I speaking to my children through my professional development? Like, what am I communicating to my children through my professional development? And I don't even know exactly now as I say this what that means, but I do see there's implications. And I know there's implications more from my tentativeness to go back through and lurk my dad's Facebook page, because I'm sitting at that door with my hand on the doorknob, asking myself, what is it I'm going to find behind this door? I want to find something. Simultaneously, I want to find something. I want to learn. I want to know more. But it's more the what will I find? My kids know we do this podcasting thing. So despite what they might find in the content, they know my setup. They've walked down here. They've stood here and sort of like waved and like, can we go do something? Can we play video games? Can we go outside? So they know where I am when I'm doing these things. There was a whole lot of and I think in a lot of ways, I like you am so much more connected with my kid's life than my father was. And that was just by nature of him working out of town, having to do commuting. Like he was gone for big chunks of the week, big chunks of the week doing work. So me now kind of having people say to me, wow, you sort of remind me of your father. It's almost like, can I learn something about myself as well in sort of pursuing, like I said, the hands on the doorknob. And I don't know. I don't know if I want to. And the other thing that makes it kind of interesting, and this is makes it really atypical, is that my mom started to use the account. So she didn't create her own Facebook account. So she's been continuing to use it. So in me lurking my dad, I'd also be lurking my mom. Like I'd have to go back through those posts over the last, like I'd have to scroll back through the timeline through the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to sort of get past my mom's kind of moment in time in order to get back to my dad's. So
dude, I don't even know where to start with that.
I know.
Like, you have access. See, in a way, I envy your situation. Your dad
I
had a
had a
Facebook
suspicion.
account.
I had a suspicion that you're thinking like that is kind of the answer to the questions that you were just asking 5 minutes ago.
I have
Right?
no record of my dad. I don't know his thinking, his reflection. I've got none of it. See, what's happening here is in our podcast, we release a bit of ourselves every week. And we there's a lot of reflection. So at the same time, we are growing as we're doing this. But it's being captured and recorded. So like I love to listen to season 1, episode 41, like basically a year ago. What were we talking about? How were we thinking? What was our approach? I have nothing. I have nothing. I remember my learning came quick and just for a brief period. So after my father passed away and all these people came out of the woodwork that knew my dad, they would talk about my dad and they would tell me things about my dad that either I knew or I had an idea or I had no clue, and that's all I got. Like, that's all I got. Now, the positive thing is generally, and maybe it's because only the nice people are the ones that come out and tell you about your dad when they pass away, but they all said the same thing about my dad, that he was like a caring, supportive person. So whenever they needed something, he was more than happy to help. They mentioned that he was very faith filled. So my dad didn't go to church every Sunday, but my dad had a strong belief, a religious belief, and he was not scared to show his faith. He was not scared to show that he was a religious person. He wore that for everybody to see and talked about it a lot. So it was neat to hear those things. Now, I'm sure my father, there's a side of him that wasn't so great, right? And I saw that as his kid, but I don't know what that looks like as like out in the real world. And my dad was, you and I have talked about this. My dad had the heart of an entrepreneur, right? So like he would have been in love with what's happening today with startups and technology. He really was into that. He just didn't have time because he was too busy working, trying to make money to pay the bills. So when you tell me your dad had a Facebook account, he lived long enough to be in this world to be able to, share some of the stupid things we share on Facebook, make comments that turn into discussions, like even just to see what your dad shared, like what was he putting out into the world? It says a little bit about him probably. That's interesting. But my fear is that you might see something that's going to crush you with respect to your dad, and I have that fear that like I'm going to discover something about my dad that I don't think is that is not admirable or whatever. But now that I'm older, I understand, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, there's the dark side of us and the light side of us. And so I can't deny my dad his dark side, because if it wasn't there, he wouldn't be the person he was. And I kind of like the person he was. So I got a great story for you that I'm not going to share on air. I'll tell you after on the off ramp, but
On the off ramp, yeah.
I think you'll appreciate both sides of the coin and the dilemma that I faced one time in trying to learn about my dad, which I think a lot of kids, or the kids I was rolling with at the time, we were all in the same boat. I can tell you that the result of my investigation about my dad, the result was an honorable outcome. So maybe, part of me was disappointed, but now looking back, part of me is elated that what I realized or what I learned about my dad was a really positive thing looking back. But at the time, it was like, do I really want to know this about my dad or not? Because this could change a lot of things. And even, I have to say, full disclosure, even talking about my dad now that he's gone, I if there's a name for this concept or this idea, the fact that I focus on the positive things about him now that he's gone, and I kind of put aside the negative things. I don't know if there's a name for that, but I do that. My wife reminds me of that all the time. She'll say, like, some of my bad habits or my negative attitudes come from the way I was raised by my dad. And I tend to put those aside. I don't tend to reflect on those things, but I'm choosing to reflect on my upbringing and the way I've turned out. I'm choosing to look at the positive aspects of that, like my work ethic. I got that from my dad. Whereas, I know if I need to get something done, it's not going to magically happen. I need to get to work. I need to put in the time, the effort, and the result still might not be what I want it to be, but at least I did something about it. I got that from him. Whereas, I meet people all the time where everything in life comes easy to them. And so when it gets hard, they don't know what to do. They kind of fall apart. Whereas I'm like, no, you gotta work. You gotta put in the time. You gotta put in the effort and get things done. I got that from him. That's a good thing, right? Like, I wouldn't be where I am today if he didn't push as hard as he pushed. And now that's the issue. The pushing's the negative stuff, right? Like, it's that forcing your kid to think one way about success. And if you don't reach what that idea is, then you're not successful. So that's the negative side. Like, my dad instilled in me early on, here's the path you're going to follow, whether you want to follow it or not. Right? That kind of sucks when somebody tells you this is what you're going to do. And I was the oldest of three, and I usually did what my dad told me to do. So there's issues there with that, right? There's like a mental health component of growing up that way. But the positives are that, I have a career, I have an education, I have a family. The dark and the light, man, you can't escape it. There's both part of the journey.
Still deciding. We'll see. I think it comes down to if we're talking about one, I don't have a strong, within my family, I don't have a strong storytelling, story sharing heritage, as in, I'm going to tell you about where you potentially are going to arrive by sharing story about my past, son. Like, I don't have that kind of, well, we mentioned it, like, wait till you grow up. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you the story. Wait till you'll learn. When you get older, you'll learn. I never had either the finger wagging or that moment where I've said that to my own kids necessarily, but I didn't have any of the stories that came out of that. Like, I don't have there's not a strong component of, come on over here and let me tell you something about your grandfather, from an elder in my family that sort of notices something in me and wants to share a bigger picture view of it. So I think, through this reflective practice that you and I are doing, and let's be honest, the idea of having a digital footprint will become so much more revealing to our children as they get older. Like you said, your kids, your son kind of lurking and joking with you about the things that you're putting out there. Well, that's only going to become more sort of affirmed and firm in your growth with your kids because of it being posted in open spaces, right? Like, there's the inevitability that there's going to be some overlap. Maybe they might be conflicted too. They might sort of know that you have this feed and they're like, yeah, I just don't know if I want to sort of listen to all that. I'm happy seeing my dad doing it in the office, and I know he's posting up, and I know he's talking with some dude, who lives near Toronto, and maybe that's all they need to know, that you're engaged in a practice that they understand without actually needing to know what it is that's being talked about. So, and that's what I think, that's part of what's conflicting for me, is I know my dad had a robust, the fact that he was digitally connected on Facebook and had a bunch of different people that he connected with, and I know that he had positive interactions there. Is that the thing that I just need to know about him? Do I need to know the details? Do I need to see the conversations? So I'll keep in the loop.
You know what? You make me want to start. You make me want to start something, where maybe every couple of weeks I sit down, turn on the camera, and just record a message to my kids about a particular topic that I'm not ready to talk to them about now, but that I can express and record. Bury it deep on the net. I know that's, but like maybe put it in my Google Drive with an open link, and then write that down on my will or something, so that, I'm gone and they look and they're like, Dad wants us to watch these videos that are living in his drive. And then I can directly tell them what I was thinking about. I wanted to tell you this about Santa, but I didn't, and this is why. Like, how rich would that be?
Why I didn't talk about Santa.
Yeah. And why? Like, what was my intention? What was my belief? Or, you're going through puberty, and this is, certain things I didn't want to talk about because they didn't come up, but I need to just tell you this, what I was thinking at that time, or whatever, right? Or the time you quit playing this sport and how I felt about you walking away from something, and like, just the concepts and ideas that maybe they're not ready to hear. But if you don't tell them now and you think you can talk to them later and something happens, they won't know from you. They won't hear it directly from you.
Man.
You stumped or what?
Yeah. It's the feels, right?
It's the feels, yeah, I guess. I'm not really in the feels right now. I'm more cerebral about it, but any topic, you just drop it. You just say it. Right? Or like, I would love to tell them, I'm not ready to sit down with my kids and tell them why I operate a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm more than happy to record it on video. Say, listen, boys, listen. I act the way I do, and these are some of the reasons why. This is what I experienced when I was a kid. This is what I grew up understanding and valuing. So when it comes off, it might be harsh. I'm not trying to be harsh. So listen to what I have to say. Because you know what? When you're gone, they're going to pay more attention. Unfortunately. Right? Like, if my mom told me, hey, your dad left an audio tape, he recorded something for you.
Well, it's the for you part that makes it.
It's the for you. So
yeah.
If she called, she's like, I was listening to it, and it said, this is for Roland. Listen to what I have to say. Dude, you know how fast I'd be in my car driving to Ottawa? Because I have nothing.
Yeah.
I have photographs, right? I don't have anything. There is something
really different to going through and kind of lurking a general feed and having something that was actually designed for you. That's intense, man. That's intense.
We have the power and we have the time to do that now. We do, and God willing, we are still around when we feel they're old enough to hear certain things, and we can deliver it to them personally.
So, dude, how can I help you clear your personal list?
We're back onto that, eh?
Dude, you want to help? I don't know if we ever left it. Really? I think we just finally.
You want to help me clear my personal list? You can help get it out to more people, because my goal is to clear your personal list out to more people.
Okay.
So that's how you can help me. There's my goal for now.
All right. I can rock that. I'm ready to go get another cup of coffee. How do we do? Hour 15. That's pretty good.
Not bad at all.
So as we come to the end, I gotta don't back out. Let me see if I can capture.
I'm not touching a thing, dude.
You're not gonna touch a thing. Okay. So next, do we officially shift into season 3, or is tentatively next week our last summer school?
I think we should shift, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, tell me. Oh, because I'm gonna. Yeah. Okay, go.
I think when we first started this experience, it started like 1 week before school type of thing. Like, I think even we're too far into summer school this year, but I think we started before the school year started originally. So I think next week before we start, because we're going to both be a ball of nerves. I think
that's true.
That season 3 should start off like that.
Damn, this is the season finale. It's a surprise season finale.
But there really is no, I mean, we just keep rolling, right?
Like we do. But it is the season finale. Like this is the one. I like the feels of it, man. That was intense that's intense for me. I got choked thinking about you telling that story. You telling that story about doing the video log, man. Like that's powerful stuff.
We're still recording, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure we were on the same page.
Yeah, no.
We're still in season 2, episode 41. I mean, if you want, we can totally shift gears, and next week could just be Decoded Podcast episode like 84. We could just go back to dumping the seasons and just being, if you like, I don't care, because we do what we want with this. Oh, and speaking of we doing what we want, hey, I want to just touch upon the fact that we talked to Stephen Hurley, the father of Voice Ed Radio, recently. And we were talking about having Decoded Podcast officially be part of the Voice Ed family of podcasts and shows and stuff. And Stephen is open to, welcoming Decoded with open arms, or at least that's how I felt about it. So we could
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Still no sponsors. That's why we can't build any of the cool stuff we like so much. We got no money.
Catering provided by my own coffee machine.
I haven't even heard from our kombucha person lately. Probably she's getting ready for school to start. She is an administrator, by the way. So props to her for making kombucha and running a school, or helping to run a school. And thanks to the few people that tweeted us about our last episode. It's funny. Every time you say lost episode, it reminds me of the last episode. So the joke's going to end next week because we can't refer to it. It's not going to, in my head, the lost episode isn't going to be connected to the last episode, because this will be the last episode. But anyway, long story short, a couple of people chimed in about our 7 minutes, shortest podcast ever. Because definitely for us, yeah. I was touching things I shouldn't have been touching. So Chris is officially in charge of.
I'm engineering. I'm on the board. I'm on the board.
You're on the board.
Yeah.
So are we good?
Yeah, we're good. I'm looking forward to how messed up my brain's going to be next week. Just being back in the school, connecting with people, the sudden reality of the challenges that I haven't been looking directly in the eye over the summer. Like I said, I just unpacked that bag of work, and in that bag of work were notes to self. Like, remember when you start planning, you got to take this into consideration. So it was my little message in a bottle.
Right
So,
on.
all right, man.
Okay.
I will. Yeah, safe hands. Safe hands.